Hey folks, I did a state of the collection about 3 years ago, I think, and the collection has changed from granted Seiko, Rolex, and Longines and other semi-luxurious pieces to now everything being under 500 and under 38 millimeters in diameter or lower. So I think it's time for a new state of the collection. So here we go. Right. So to keep the video in tolerable duration, I will just kind of talk about per each watch, the price, the diameter, since those are the two main focal points of the collection, and then kind of talk about one thing that I most like about the watch, and then the one thing that I most dislike about the watch. So let's start it off with the bulova Super Seville, which is 37.5 millimeters in diameter, and the price point is somewhere around $450 or so. The thing that I like most about this watch is the looks. So the watch has a fantastic aesthetics. I get the most compliments wearing this watch probably than any other watch I have owned in the past. And then the high level of polishing with the square dial format and the coin or fluted bezel is like a real attention getter. So the aesthetic is fantastic on this watch. That's the most thing I like about it. I think you are supposed to say the precision is movement because is plus or minus 10 seconds a year or something like that, but I gotta be honest, it's the looks. So one thing that I dislike about this particular watch is the actual dimensions. As far as how it looks on my wrist, it's 37.5 millimeters in diameter, which is not too big, and it qualifies under the threshold of 38 millimeters or below. However, because of the actual design of the square watch, it's gonna look like it's probably somewhere within the 39 to 40 millimeter range. And therefore, when it actually on my wrist, I tend to feel as though it's kind of pushing the boundaries of how much watch presence that I would like on my wrist. So that's probably the only thing that I dislike about this particular watch. But otherwise, it's a fantastic watch, and I do not regret buying this watch in the slightest bit. The second watch up is the vintage silver seiko wave in the retro TV dial. The dimensions of this watch is around 34 millimeters in diameter. It is very slim at around 9 millimeters. And at the price point, you could get this watch anywhere between 100 to 150 USD, depending on the conditions of the watch. The thing that I like most about this watch is, and the reason why I brought it up second next to the Super Seville, is the dimensions of the watch. It's 34 millimeters in diameter, and you would think that that is a little bit too small for a watch, but because of the square dimensions, it actually wears like a 36 millimeters, I would say. And I think for my 6.5 inch wrist, it is absolutely perfect as far as the watch presence that it presents. So I'll do a little bit of a comparison shot of how this particular watch looks on my wrist, which again is 6.5 inch wrist, versus the Super Seville, just so that you can kind of see the difference. But I believe that 34 millimeters in a square format is perfect for wrist size of 7 inches or smaller. The thing that I dislike about this watch is the quality of the materials used. It's a vintage watch, so you kind of have to expect it. But the bracelet feels like I could kind of snap it in half if I wanted to. And the actual case also feels like I could kind of bend it, even though I probably couldn't. So the thing that I would point out as what I dislike about this particular watch is it feels kind of flimsy and rickety as far as the materials that was being used. Third watch up is my hruodland machinist, which is an homage to the 222. It is 190 USD or so, and then the dimensions as far as the width is around 37 millimeters, although it tends to look a little bit larger due to the integrated bracelet and the case shape. The thing that I like most about this watch is the looks. It's actually a really stunning watch in person. The combination of the case with the dark dial, unlike the original, I believe only comes in gold. It contrasts really well with the PVD gold that flows from the case to the integrated bracelet. It is actually a very, very stunning homage for just under 200 US dollars. I have to point out what I do not like about this watch, and it's going to sound a little bit funny, but I also don't. The looks is what I actually kind of don't like about the watch. I think it's a little bit too much out there for me. I have not worn this watch outside since I have received it. I only been wearing it inside while kind of working around the house. I just feel like it's a little bit too much out there. It's a little bit too much bada bing for me. And I would probably only wear this outside in public if I was like reincarnated as a member of the Sopranos or something like that. But otherwise, stunning watch is a little bit too much out there for me to wear out in public. So that's what I do not like about the watch. The fourth watch is my San Martin Pilot, 37 millimeters in diameter. And the price point of this particular watch is around 170 US dollars with the bracelet, but you get it for about $30 cheaper if you want to get it with a leather strap. Now, the thing that I like about this particular watch is the subtleness of the design. This is my very first, I guess, Pilot watch. It won't be my last, but a lot of the Pilot watch tends to come in dimensions that are way too big for my 6.5 inch wrist. However, once I saw this particular watch with a 37 millimeters in diameter with the Flieger design, I decided to kind of pick it up, mainly because it was less than 200 bucks. And I really love this particular watch. It's very subtle. And I would say this is going to be my introduction into the Pilot / field watches, because I really like the fact that I could just wear this watch without anybody even noticing what I have on my wrist. Now, as far as what I dislike about this particular watch is, even though the thickness of this watch is listed as 11.5, and I believe I measured it actually a little bit less at like 11.4, because of the 37 millimeter dimensions and the fact that the case back protrudes out a little bit, since everything is so compact, it feels a little bit unbalanced on your wrist. So when I do wear this watch on my wrist, it feels like there's a little bit of a globe on the back of my wrist, and it's not very stable. So that's one thing that I do not like about this watch, especially when you wear it on a bracelet. You notice that feeling a lot more. However, if you wear it on a strap, it tends to fit on your wrist a lot more snugly. Therefore, you won't get that feeling. But just be warned that you do get that unbalanced feeling from the protruding case back and from case being so compact on the back of your wrist. All right, the fifth watch in my collection is the infamous Octopus Kraken 36 millimeter homage to the Rolex Explorer. The price point of this watch is hovering around 190 USD, I believe, at this point, and it's totally worth it in my book. The thing that I love about this particular watch is that I actually owned the 14270 a while back, and this particular homage or fromage, whatever you want to call it, comes super close to the OG, vintage 90s Explorer. The dimensions, the feel, the case, just everything has been done pretty damn close to the 14270. However, if I have to call out one of the things I dislike about this watch, has to do with the fact that it is actually really close to the 14270, which is lack of AR coating on this. Well, I shouldn't say lack of AR coating. It states on the product details page that there is AR coating on this watch, but they didn't put it underneath the crystal. I don't know where they put the AR coating, but it's not underneath the crystals, because, man, everything on the dial on the sunlight becomes very milky. If I wanted to look at that butthole logo a little bit clearly, I can't do it on the sunlight because it's basically just reflecting every thing under the sun. So, if there's one thing that I really dislike about this watch, and it's a pretty big dislike, much like the original why I flipped it, is that I can't see the dial clearly because of the lack of AR coating or incorrect application of AR coating if they did actually put it. So I put that as one of the main negatives on my review for this watch, and it still stands to this day. Otherwise, if they took care of the AR coating, this watch could have been so great. The sixth watch in the collection is the L'Oreal Falcon, which is 36 millimeters in diameter, and the price point of around 499 US dollars. It's actually not around, it's basically 499 US dollars, which qualifies just under the $500 threshold. I love this watch for a lot of things, but mainly because since I have received this watch, it has become my true Gata watch. It has all the characteristics of the Rolex Explorer, but it takes its own inspiration from it. So it adds its own flair and its styling, and people don't really ask me if I'm wearing a Rolex Explorer when I'm wearing this watch, which I really like. And there's not one specific thing that I could point out to as to why it became my Gata watch. It's just a combination of all the things that just kind of contributed to me just kind of picking up this watch more than any other watch since I got it. So I would say if there's one thing that I could point to as far as being positive, it's not one specific thing. but it's just a combination of a lot of things that led to this being my go-to watch. As far as what I do not like about the watch, it has to do with the dimensions. Now, it's 36 millimeters in diameter. However, the wet presence on your wrist feels like it's actually slightly less than a 36 millimeter because of the actual visibility of the dial is less than other 36 millimeters that are out there. So a lot less dial is shown on the actual case. Therefore, when it's actually worn on your wrist, it tends to look a bit smaller than other 36 millimeters that are out there. So if there is a negative about this particular watch, it has to do with the small presence on your wrist. However, if you want a watch that has a smaller presence on your wrist that is 36 millimeters, this would be a perfect watch. The final watch is my second Laurier that I own, which is Laurier Astra, which comes in 36 millimeter like the Falcon, and it has the same price point of $499 US. While I love pretty much everything about this particular watch, if I have to pick one thing out, it would be the actual lume. I'm not a huge lume guy, but the non-traditional application of the lume on the dial in a ring pattern around the hour markers to create like an inverse view in the dark is pretty damn unique, and I really appreciate it. Now, the lume itself is also pretty damn sweet. It is pretty bright and it lasts for a pretty long time. However, from a practical standpoint, it's a mess because my obtuse brain takes a couple of seconds to figure out what time it is. But for smart people, it wouldn't be an issue. The thing that I do not like about this watch, I'm kind of nitpicking at this point, but I feel like for this watch, there was a little bit of an infatuation that was happening with me. I really, really loved this watch in the beginning, but I sense a little bit of decline over time as time progressed. I think that's pretty much normal, but since I had such a high peak when I received this watch, it has been pretty decent free fall, where if I could graph, my interest level for the Falcon versus the Astra, the Falcon would be on a timeline more of a horizontal line versus the actual interest level for the Astra would be a really high peak and basically a decline over time. And I could see at some point in the near future where my interest level for this particular watch has basically surpassed and declined more than my interest level for the Falcon, because Falcon seems to have, for whatever reason, more sustainability as far as how much I enjoy the watch. And for anyone who's wondering why my collection has flipped over the years, I recognize that my personal sweet spot when it comes to watches is that I get the most enjoyment when it's under $500 in USD and around 38 millimeters or below. That's where I can find watches that I feel like there is some quality and it will look good on my wrist, and where I can just kind of wear without worrying about getting it scratched, lost, or even stolen. I long past the stages of wanting to wear a watch that signals something to others as far as what's on my wrist. I just don't care at this point. So for now, for my sweet spot, as far as how much enjoyment that I get, it tends to be around somewhere around 500 USD at 38 millimeters in diameters or below. So that's it. If you like the video, like and subscribe and all that stuff, and peace.